everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. Got a lot going on. We're going to do a state of the race. Early ballots are going out in North Carolina this week. We're basically 60-ish days away. My goodness gracious, this snap election we're having, as I heard it termed by somebody the other day, is something else. So we're going to get a little state of the race. We're going to talk about free speech. One of my favorite organizations, FIRE, has a new survey out to tell you which are the best and worst schools in America. And a little spycraft going on in the US of A. And we will get to that. But before that, how you doing, Vic?
Hello, Mary Catherine. I'm doing fine by and large. I wanted to talk very briefly about food delivery.
Okay.
So and I get it, the gig economy. Right. These are important jobs that people do this. They're sometimes part-time. Right. And they've got a lot of other things going on. So DoorDash, Uber Eats, and whatnot. So the other day, our office decided to get pizza from a place down the street. Mm-hmm. But there are not enough hands here at the office, and there's a lot of pies, etc., to do this sort of thing. So we had just decided. I didn't make these decisions. It's not the point here. But we just decided, okay, don't worry. The place does DoorDash. They'll just bring it over. Right. Since it's just literally a block and a half away. I believe they delivered. The guy got the pizza from the place a block and a half away down the street, which is about a 5-minute walk or 10, whatever it is, at 11:43, and then drove around for the next hour because he could not find this place.
No.
Yes. And then he somehow claimed that, his GPS wasn't working. And of course he doesn't have a map. So there's no, I don't know why, there's no map on your phone or something where you could put the address in. I mean, he could have walked it, but again, there was a lot of pies. So you needed a car and the whole thing. And, but really, and by the time it arrived, not only was it was lukewarm at best. Mm-hmm. Some of it was not warm at all. And the cheese is slid over the place, where things were it was all just a mess. What's going on here?
This is not a hard address to find.
No, it is not. It's pretty prominent. The numbers are large.
The numbers are large.
Yes.
It's on a major thoroughfare.
Yeah.
So that when you hear the address, you're like, oh, I know what that street is.
It's right
Let me
there.
Just ride up and down it until I see the numbers.
Piece of cake. So, do you do delivery services? Now, I will do delivery if a place has its own delivery. Chick-fil-A has its own service, and I will trust that. But a lot of times, I'll just drive and pick up myself.
See, interesting. I'm opposite.
Okay.
And it's because I think I don't want to sign into an extra bunch of things.
Oh.
So I only will do like an Uber Eats or a DoorDash where I already have an account. And if it's not through there, I'm not interested. So I don't do the on-site.
Oh,
although with Chick-fil-A,
which was old school.
With Chick-fil-A, I bet that's better anyway because they're very good. Particular about their stuff.
As they are with everything. How has your experience though been with do you ever get that late sort of like, oh, this took a while and it's cold?
So one time, it got dangerous.
Oh,
because I was pregnant and I was sick, and it was like 8:15 p.m. and I wanted fried chicken for some reason.
Well, you're pregnant.
Yeah.
I'm not pregnant and I want fried chicken. I want it right now.
So from KFC, I ordered DoorDash.
Yeah.
And it was so painful. And for those of you who have not been pregnant, maybe you won't recognize this feeling. But when you really get your heart set on something to eat when you're pregnant, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
The sitcom scenes are not lying to you, right?
I really feel like I can relate.
Yeah. So you get something in your head. You're really looking forward to it. And especially if you're sick like I am, you can only eat certain things. And so when you come across something, you really need to get it. And then there's also a pretty strict time frame because especially, again, if you're sick, you're going to get sick if you don't eat the thing or if you don't eat something. And I was not happy
when you're
with my
pregnant, your
choices.
body is telling you the cravings are very specific to your needs.
Yes. Yeah, well, one would hope.
Yeah, no.
Did my body really need cup of noodle 3 times a day? I don't know.
It needed the salt.
Sodium.
The baby needed sodium.
So, anyway, I order this, and I can see, you can watch it, the progress. Oh, goodness. It just kept getting pushed back and back and back. And I had done the same thing where I was like, I'll just have it delivered because it's easier.
Yeah.
It was 10:15 before I got fried chicken. Now, I
can't
ate the hell out of the fried chicken,
yeah,
but I was
no.
not happy with that experience. And I think you just hit the lotto in the opposite direction sometimes
Yes.
when it comes to food delivery.
No, I mean, it's never like they're not going directly to your door, right?
Well, and sometimes I've paid for them to come directly to my door. I believe as I did in that case, and it still took forever.
I have talked to restaurateurs, you know, at like the local Thai place, and the old owner used to complain to me about having to use the services too, because they will get complaints from customers about the food
because
being
the food's
cold,
not good.
but of course their food is ready to go. And
so let me tell you,
I'm just down on it.
In-N-Out does not do DoorDash for this reason. I know this because I've tried to DoorDash In-N-Out while I'm in California because I'll be too busy doing something else to drive over to the place.
Yeah.
They won't do it because they don't want it to go all soggy and gross.
Good for In-N-Out.
That may have changed since then. That was several years ago. But yeah, the integrity of their food is very important.
The Chick-fil-A, if we do like a catering thing, they will not deliver the waffle fries because it gets too soggy. But if I'm, you know, going to the Chick-fil-A and bring it back to my house, I can do it in about 5 minutes.
Well, if I get Chick-fil-A and bring it back to my house, or any fries, I like to drive around extra because I like them soggy.
I will do
put a couple miles on those fries before you get home.
I will do the one hand on the steering wheel and the other hand searching. That's
Oh, yeah.
my fee. Okay, if I'm bringing home food for the family,
we know you come back with salt and burns on your fingers. They know what happened.
It's so good. Okay,
I do the same thing. That is the tax for my having gone out and bought this food.
That's right.
And
in lieu of a gratuity.
Man, those burning hot fries are so good. But I like them soggy. And the thing is, when they get soggy, fewer people in my family want them.
It's a win-win for you.
More for me.
It's a win-win.
See, I like them both ways. They only like them one way. So
you can't
to
lose.
the victor go the spoil.
That's right. Mary Catherine, how are you?
I'm good.
What's going on?
What's going on with us? Oh, we took the 2.5-year-old to her first day of preschool today. Yes.
Did she understand? Like, was there any dry run when this happened, or is
there was an open house, so she'd seen the area. Now,
other kids age.
I'm sure you can guess when you drop your kid off for preschool for the first time, or daycare, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's two different kinds of children. There's hug, mom, scream, be upset.
Oh, right.
You know.
I've seen that.
And then there's I guess there's a spectrum, but the other end of the spectrum is nothing.
Smell you later.
Nothing. Would you like to guess which one my 2.5-year-old is?
I'm going to say the latter.
Yeah, she was not even one look.
She checked out.
Yeah. She had her little bag. They have a little tote bag for her with her water bottle in it and her extra change of clothes. And she actually tried to get in the classroom before they opened the classroom. She's so excited to get away from her family.
Oh, that's funny.
Just getting in there beforehand. And the teacher's like, "Oh, you got to wait here." So she waited. And then
do they get them out of the seat? Because that's what they used to do when our kids were small. They go into, say unlock your door, and they open the door, and they'll take the kid out. So you just stay in your seat the entire time.
Like out of the car seat?
Yeah.
You had curbside child pickup?
Yes.
Wow. They don't even do that for my dog at the daycare. That's impressive.
So you have to go out and do a whole
I had to get out of the car.
I think they just want people just in and
especially
out,
first day. They do ask that you drop them at the doorway to the classroom so people don't sort of prolong the situation. But yeah, she was definitely a peace out kid. She is my third. I think the oldest didn't care that I was leaving, like sort of a tossed away wave.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, a little bit more attached, somewhat surprisingly, but in new environments, she gets her feet under fast.
Did she have a meltdown?
She didn't have a meltdown. She just a little reluctant, a little weepy. All good. This one, not even a wave.
Was it, in these instances, has it ever been a little teary-eyed for you, or no?
For this one, no. I feel like my first and second, I think there was a little bit of verklempt.
Kate definitely with our son, and he as a kid, we always say that his expressions were generally he was bright-eyed and a sense of wonder. He was a quiet, observing kid, so he's always looking around, just very innocent, just sort of sense of wonder. And the teacher takes him and then walking with him by the hand, and then our daughter was almost 2 years younger, and she's like, "Where is he going?" You know, and then
yes.
Kate's crying and the whole thing. But he didn't. You know, he's just quiet, and he was fine. And my daughter was just rare.
Yeah,
Just
that tracks. There was
they
some,
see what they're doing, and they want to be a
yes,
part of that.
there was
School.
some separation anxiety between the two younger kids.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, the 2.5-year-old goes to her brother saying, "I got a hug."
Oh.
And he said, "No," and walked the other direction. And then eventually he relented, and she gave him a sweet hug, and they had a little hug. And then I think he began to understand, oh, she's actually leaving. So when she left with us, he got very upset.
Wow.
And when she comes back, he's going to be pumped.
Oh,
Although I
excited,
think I think this is good, because she has been interrupting his naps in the most aggressive ways lately, like climbing into his crib, onto his head to get him to play with her. And so I think he'll get some rest. This poor child will get some rest because his hellion sister is at preschool. I think she's going to have a great time. We're excited about it. Although one complaint, and I know that other preschool parents have probably experienced this, and look, some people need it. There's an ease-in day, which is which is when they have your kid at preschool for the most inconvenient amount of time possible. Because they don't...
It's not enough, and it's not,
They don't want to do the full 3 hours on the first day. So you get an hour and...
Now, what does that buy you? Nothing.
So I went down the hall and did the parent coffee for a bit, you know.
Oh, that's how you killed time.
I killed a little bit of time.
Sure, that's it.
Killed a little bit of time meeting new friends, you know. I don't know if I have any room on the roster.
No room.
We'll see what we can do. Everybody seemed very nice.
Okay.
So I'm enthused about this new adventure, and everybody's doing well. Good. She's already been picked up because it's an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's over. The experience is now over.
The preschool I sent the preschool I sent the big girls to, they did an ease-in for, I want to say, like 2 weeks. And I was like, guys,
no,
I just need to leave this child here.
Yeah.
Please let me leave the child here.
Yeah. Like, I even forget what it was like. Is it like 3-4 hours, I think? Or something like
it's a half day. So it's, like 9 to 12:30 or something.
Yeah, it's a half day.
Yeah.
I was, in fact, actually very difficult getting into nursery school. I think
I was too.
Really?
Yes,
look at that. And here we are on the show. I think third time was the charm. The first 2 times.
So
a lot of crying.
You can tell I was firstborn because my parents were still mollifying me, and by the time the boys came along, there was no mollification happening for anyone anymore. Yeah. When I went to preschool, and by the way, my daughter is a bumblebee. You know how they have themes in the rooms? Yes. She's a bumblebee.
Oh.
I started as a bumblebee, so that was kind of cute. But when my dad took me to that bumblebee class, these many years ago, I cried every day when he would drop me off. And like hysterics, bad.
Oh, it's like, it tugs at the heartstrings.
Pull it together.
If you're the parent.
Pull it together, Mary Catherine. In retrospect, I think I should have acted differently. Anyway, so my father is dropping me off every day. I'm freaking out. And he tells me, if you shape up, you can have a trophy. I'll get you, or I can't remember if he said a trophy, but I'll get you something.
Yes, an enticement.
And indeed, the day that I went into class without freaking out, and imagine how hard this was in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
He went somewhere, I guess a local trophy shop, and got me a little tiny Garfield trophy. It was like a plastic cutout Garfield, because I liked Garfield at the time, on a pedestal. It was about probably 6 or 8 inches high. And it says, Mary Catherine, Big Girl, 1983.
I was surprised. I'm surprised it didn't say you were perfect.
No.
Sorry. No. Okay. You clawed your way to the top.
Again, that's a real first kid situation.
Yeah.
By the time the third kid came along, it's like, go to your classroom and shut up.
Well, it's the same thing with like, we don't have time to read books anymore. You know, the first one, 3 books, and after that, it just gets less and less.
That's why you breed the other kids to read to the younger children.
To read to them. No, that's right. That's right. Okay.
So anyway, my big girl is already a big girl, and she will need no trophy. So, although maybe she deserves one. Maybe I should reward good behavior instead of bad behavior. What about that?
Yeah, and look for the Garfield.
Oh my goodness. Okay, shall we talk about politics?
Oof, let's do it.
Okay, it is 2024, y'all. We are electing a president. We are very, very close to the election. It's going to fly by. We have what, like 60-ish days left?
Something. Yes,
Uh,
that's correct.
It's interesting to me what polling has done, because obviously before Biden dropped out, the big picture looked like almost sort of a easy-ish win for Trump. And then when he was almost killed, that seemed certain to solidify.
Yeah.
Biden drops out of the race. Kamala gets 6 unbroken weeks of the greatest, kindest, softest coverage I have ever seen of anyone, including Obama.
Yeah.
And then she has her convention, and now we're post-convention with very little bounce for her, and some solidification in enthusiasm and solidification among like tried and true Democrats, particularly women voters, all to the good for her. She has stretched the map in some ways that Biden was unable to do.
Right.
But as I noted last week, she was in Pennsylvania with Biden.
Yes.
And he's such a weak link to me, and really messes up her message that I don't have anything to do with this economic disaster that we're living through, that I think that signals they have a real problem there with men, particularly, possibly with older voters.
Well, also, another indicator is the Senate race between Bob Casey and Dave McCormick. McCormick is the challenger of the Republican, and Bob Casey is the incumbent Democrat. That's tied, which is surprising, because I thought that the incumbent Casey would have had a few more points ahead. But he's not. So, I mean, that's something.
That is interesting. And he has been running, and this speaks to the trajectory that I'm talking about. McCormick has been running behind Casey. Casey, importantly, a 112% name ID in the state. I mean, this is a legacy. This is a legacy.
It's a legacy,
and so this is a tough uphill battle for someone like a McCormick. McCormick, notably, was the first candidate, including Trump, the first candidate with a ad out going after Kamala on her past statements that make her too liberal for the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I think the Trump campaign would now be better off had it just copy and pasted that ad and put its seal of approval on it and put it out on the airwaves very quickly.
You mean versus the she's only black now and she's dumb? You mean that might not work as well? What?
Or like not being on the air at all during the Olympics?
Yeah.
I should say, I don't know that they weren't on the air at all. They were not noticeably on the air during that time, and I think they lost ground. Okay. But this week, then there was the weird break they took after the convention, which I thought was very strange.
Yes.
For Harrison Walls. Like,
you guys are not on the trail.
You guys are so exhausted. Anyway, they took a break from the trail. And then now we have her I believe she was in Georgia a couple days ago. Makes sense.
Yep.
CNN reports she's in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. That corrects the problem that Hillary had, which is never visiting Wisconsin.
Yeah, right.
Oops. But she's also in New Hampshire and I believe even Virginia at some point.
So, and the idea of spinning it, and I just saw this the other day, the New Hampshire story about, wow, she's, looks like, she's pulling ahead there over Trump in New Hampshire, as if Trump,
yes,
as if he was going to win New Hampshire, and B, as if he cares about New Hampshire.
No, so here's the thing. You and I are framing it correctly, which is that New Hampshire was a reach for Trump that in a Biden running situation, he might have had.
Oh, yeah, I think he would.
But should by all rights be blue.
Mm-hmm.
The framing from Axios and others is Trump campaign shifts as its path to victory narrows, okay? And they are noting that Trump's campaign is placing less emphasis on New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Virginia. The flip, though, is that she's putting more emphasis on those states.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Which is a bad sign for her. In fact, I saw some Wisconsin polling that I think he was actually ahead in some recent Wisconsin polling, which I just think that's not a good sign for her.
There was the American Enterprise Institute had some new polling numbers, and it showed Kamala over Biden in the general election, maybe by 4 points, but she was ahead in those polls in Michigan and Wisconsin, but I think tied in Pennsylvania, and I think Trump maybe ahead in Arizona.
Yeah, so Trump refocusing, Axios says, on North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada.
He needs North Carolina.
Where he did have significant leads there.
Yeah.
Harris has made them competitive. But again, except for North Carolina, Arizona and Nevada certainly should have been considered purplish to blue.
Yeah.
North Carolina, purplish to red, maybe actually red. So I'm not sure she'd be in New Hampshire if things were going as swimmingly as they would have you believe. I've also heard
the question of the internals is what you're suggesting.
Yes. Well, and I've also heard from some groups in the field polling that are not public polls that they're seeing the same trajectory, that during the run-up to that convention, there was a surge in a direction that looked like, ooh, could the bottom fall out for Trump and for these Senate races if it falls out for Trump? And that momentum has switched to the other direction now. So I just think the trajectory is interesting, especially when we're 2 months from this thing happening.
Yeah. I mean, this country does not do snap elections, but this is like the equivalent of.
Yeah.
So you get your wish. If you wanted to be more like Europe, this is how it feels like.
If only we could let the children go to school. That would have been the better way to be like Europe.
It's going to be. That's right. And the train searches for minors. So there you go. Also in Europe, better. The other question is about how the undecideds and how they're going to break, because right now, the people who are voting for her, nothing. I really don't think anything is going to make them not. They will convince themselves that she doesn't need to talk policy. She doesn't need to do interviews. Like you mentioned, if it's like 60-something days away, she got her one big interview done. That's it.
By the way,
only get one.
A stat, which I believe I got from Michael Duncan, is that Trump, during the time she has done one interview, has done 35 interviews. Now, look, that poses all sorts of risks for him, right? Because he is putting himself out there. He is putting himself on the record.
Right.
But you know what? I actually do. I unabashedly prefer a candidate who puts themselves out there with policy proposals, with something on their website, with interviews, as opposed to one who does not. I am
assuming they're not insane.
Well, here's the thing. He is a little insane, right? So he goes out and he does all these interviews and he says things that are weird, and he has a conversation with cocaine with Theo Von.
That was interesting.
It was interesting. I don't think that's an interesting moment, because I don't think she's capable of doing that.
No,
she would be so odd in that situation.
Thinking about what she wants to say versus what she should say versus what do I actually think.
By the way, we actually have an example of this back in 2019 when she was, I believe it was when she was running for president, on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne, and she was asked about marijuana possession in her record, being tough on people for marijuana in California, and she made some jokes about smoking weed.
Yeah, laughed.
And in fact, actually, ticked off her father.
Yeah,
because
he was Jamaican.
He felt that she had sort of besmirched the family and the Jamaican culture by suggesting that that's why she understood weed.
Yeah,
and anyway, so she has a record of not being great in those situations, but it's exactly opposite strategies, which is Donald Trump floods the zone, often with like a fair amount of weirdness.
Yeah.
And you can't sort of nail any of it down.
There's too many targets. It's like you're just overwhelmed and you don't know which one. That's exactly
like the IVF thing, which is just this insane proposal, which I haven't spent nearly enough time saying is insane, because there's a lot of things.
And we've moved on.
It's bad, by the way. It's a bad proposal.
Right.
People shouldn't be paying for everyone else's IVF as part of their mandated health insurance or whatever it is that they're proposing.
Now, it's interesting because, he has been around, politically speaking, for, almost 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to find some bombshell on him between now and November 5. Do you think that because of how this was rushed with Kamala Harris and now with Tim Walz and all the issues he's going through, that the Republicans are working on some sort of October surprise, do you think?
I'm not sure October surprises exist in the way that they used to. By the way, and that is part of her strategy, which, as I said, is the opposite of his, which is just to starve the beast of anything, because she knows that they'll prop her up anyway. So there's fewer opportunities for her to mess up. There's fewer opportunities for her to say weird things, to be weird. But that also has the tendency to amplify whatever you do say.
Yeah.
So she better
The
get it
one
right
thing if you don't get it.
when she's out there. By the way, speaking of these various candidates and their October surprises, the Free Beacon's Colin Anderson reporting that Tim Walz repeatedly claimed that he nearly finished a PhD years after he had disappeared from that university. He really... Is there anything he hasn't fudged?
I'm sure that his response is going to be, well, we're all working on our degrees, even when we're not. I can't, I'm at some point in time, Mary Catherine, I'm going to get that master's degree.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't taken the GREs, and I haven't enrolled anywhere, but and I'm no longer enrolled. But up here,
Yeah,
in my
you're
mind,
still working on it.
I'm this close. I'm 2 years away from my national security studies master's.
So do we think October surprises exist in the same way they used to? Because I think we are a 45-45 nation.
Mm-hmm.
People are not budging from those positions. They know Donald Trump very well. They don't know Kamala Harris very well, but to the 45%, I don't think it matters that much. They're just like, she's not Trump. Now, if you had, I don't know, a Ron DeSantis or a Nikki Haley in this position, certainly you could convince some of those 45, but we're not in that situation.
No.
So it's 45-45, and that means that not very many people can move.
Right. It's undecideds and then third-party candidates, which, as you know, is going to be very interesting now that Robert Kennedy is no longer in the race. And how does that break? Obviously, at the end of the day, that's in Trump's favor. Do you remember the October surprise of the Gore campaign in 2000? What did they spring on us before election?
Was it cocaine or was it?
It was
National Guard.
It was DU. Well, that was all. It was DUI.
DUI.
That was the last one that he was. George W. Bush had gotten a DUI while driving out in, I don't know if it was Kennebunkport or up there.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to turn voters away.
I
the fact that Tim Walz has one and nobody cares. Nobody cares.
It's like never even happened. Yeah. 90 miles per hour, by the way.
Yeah, and he's like
not a small one.
Details of that incident. So
in her quest, Harris, to win over folks in places like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, where they might be a little concerned about the border, she has run an ad that features the Trump border wall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But Andrew Kaczynski over at CNN has done some research on that. And I'm going to read the beginning of his story, and then I'll play for you Aaron Burnett reporting on it.
Okay.
Vice President Kamala Harris likes to portray herself as tough on the border and immigration. Recent TV ads highlight her time as a border state prosecutor who aggressively targeted criminal cartels and drug smugglers, as well as her support for the toughest border security bill in decades. But in her 2019 book, The Truths We Hold, that is a politician title if there ever was one.
Great.
Harris called the wall useless and said it was nothing more than a symbol, a monument standing in opposition to not just everything I value, but to the fundamental values upon which this country was built. Flash forward, she's using the wall in an ad to pad her credentials to be tough on the border. Let's hear Aaron Burnett sort of introduce some of this work that Kaczynski did.
Tonight, K-File investigates. In a new report you'll see first out front, the K-File team scoured Kamala Harris's tweets and statements going all the way back to 2017. And what they found was more than 50 instances of Harris slamming Trump's border wall. But now, new Harris campaign ads actually showcase that very wall.
As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border.
And on top of critical tweets, Harris also wrote in her 2019 book, quote, "There was a bigger reason to oppose the border wall. A useless wall on the southern border would be nothing more than a symbol, a monument standing in opposition to not just everything I value, but to the fundamental values upon which this country was built. How could I vote to build what would be little more than a monument designed to send the cold, hard message, keep out?" Well, K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. So, Andrew, I mean, you all have gone through, scoured an incredible amount of material. Tell me more about what you found.
Yeah, that's right. We found more than 50 of those tweets criticizing the border wall before she used that in her ad. And I want people to take a look at just a few of what she said here. She called it wasteful, useless, a waste of taxpayer money, a vanity wall project, a wasteful border wall, a stupid wall, a medieval vanity project, and an unnecessary wall.
I let her repeat the quote because it's worth repeating.
Yeah.
Not just all the values I hold dear, but the fundamental values of this nation. Here I am standing next to it, walking solemnly past the border wall.
Oh, well, remember, her values haven't changed. So
This is the sign, by the way, again, lack of prep, lack of foresight. This is a person who
throw it up there.
who never thought for an instant
Yeah.
about what this might actually mean. She never thought for an instant,
how it might be a little jarring.
Might I have to reckon with this? Might people outside California think this is crazy? Might I have to walk this back? It's never occurred to her.
Yeah.
And it probably won't have to, because despite Kaczynski's best efforts, I don't think she's going to be asked about this unless by Donald Trump.
So the first thing is, I love the voiceover. They found the oldest, whitest guy to do the talking for Kamala Harris. It's like, build Ford tough, and that's the first thing. The second thing is,
God made a farmer.
Yeah, that's right. And the second thing is the spin. So they did, they reached for comment, right, from the Harris campaign. And immediately they say, Republican bill. The Republican bill was not voted. Republicans did not vote for the bill. That could have solved all this problem.
Right.
And we wouldn't be here. So ignore the first 3.5 years.
Right.
Where illegal immigration was out of control because we had reversed all of Donald Trump's executive orders, and just focus on that one opportunity of a bipartisan bill that they chose not to because of Donald Trump. And then they got off scot-free for the 3.5 years. And then the other thing is the reaction to Andrew Kaczynski's story. If you look on social media, the comments, the people who are so upset.
The betrayal.
They feel traitor. They've even used the word traitor. It's true. One recurring comment was, "What happened to you?" And the other thing is, not surprised, CNN is sucking up to the right, sucking up to Trump. That's what they're doing. And he's just a part of that.
It's ridiculous. I think
it's nuts.
Kaczynski's doing his job. And I've had differences with Kaczynski in the past. But he deals in tape. And tape is her kryptonite. So it's kind of hard for Andrew to look at all the tape and not conclude something like this and not report something like this. So I appreciate him doing that work, because I do feel like so few in media, certainly right now, are willing to take the types of social media accusations that you're talking about for doing their jobs. But look, she's not going to get asked questions about it unless it's on the debate stage next week. And so I am appreciative that we have this information, that someone did the scouring, that someone's giving it mainstream credibility, that she said these things. Yeah. And now she's just putting that wall in her ad.
She, like you said, it's slapdash, and it's going to be really awkward next week when she does a tough on crime ad with Willie Horton. It'll be like, oh, wait a minute, I think that was used before. But she's really tough on that. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, the best of luck to her as she tours New Hampshire and Virginia.
Yeah. Could you imagine, by the way, if all of the media put their effort into it the way they did in taking Joe Biden down?
Oh my gosh.
They combined their forces. The things they would find.
I mean, this is the thing that's aggravating about media coverage, is that, they can say, for something, let's take, for instance, I think it's very problematic. I know I'm weird. I think it's very problematic we don't have a president right now because he's incapable of doing the job. And we don't know, what committee is running the country.
Yeah.
And is Kamala doing it? I don't know. I think that's a problem. But because Biden has stepped aside from the campaign and most of the press is happy with that eventuality, they're not interested in who's running the country. And they're not interested in asking Harris who's running the country or how she covered this up. Right. It's all in the past, and that's a process story, right? Yeah. That's a process story. Voters don't care about a process story of who the president is right now. She didn't have an answer for how she covered that up. during the months and years that she did. The thing about the media is if it's a process story they want you to care about, you will most certainly care about it. You will know everything there is to know about Scooter Libby.
Oh.
But
there's a name.
Right?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
But it will just be foisted upon you.
Yeah.
But in this case, no.
The aspens are turning. Wasn't that his code? Okay.
In this case, like the 13,
Nothing.
the 8 members of fallen family, fallen servicemen and women who are complaining about
Those
how
are families.
we don't need. That's a process story. I don't know about that.
Process story.
Well, the process continues for another 2 months. We'll see what happens. The process is a little different in Kathy Hochul's office, it seems.
Yes.
Shall we get into this? This is NBC News reporting a former top aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul was arrested Tuesday on federal charges of acting as a secret agent of the Chinese government, authorities said. Linda Sun, 41, is accused of using her high-ranking positions in state government to serve the interests of the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party in exchange for millions of dollars. Her husband, Chris Hu, 40, was also arrested in the alleged scheme. Sun was charged with violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act. That's FARA. You've heard about that before. Visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering. Hu was charged with money laundering, conspiracy to commit bank fraud, and misuse of means of identification. She worked in both Cuomo's and Hochul's New York governor office.
Awkward.
Yeah.
To say the least.
I shall say alleged.
Alleged. Okay, all this is alleged.
Allegedly awkward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So the first thing is when I learned of the charges, and I thought, okay, it's a FARA issue, just registered lobbyist.
Right.
Obviously, that's a problem in general, but it happens a lot. Hunter Biden's in this situation. Right. But
there can be smaller issues that are more on the nitpicky side.
That's right.
Right.
And then you realize, being an unregistered foreign agent for a communist government who is actually, our main adversary these days. Yeah. And then, of course, being Hochul's deputy, the amount of access she had, both to the New York state government, but also to the governor, but also in things like turning away access to Taiwanese who wanted to meet, right? Because, they're not friends. And
it's bad.
Yeah, it's and the smuggling. I mean, that's pretty serious stuff.
I like this
ahead.
too. As you know, Cuomo's reign over the COVID period was marked by bad decisions. As New York became the epicenter of the emerging COVID crisis, the New York Times reports, Ms. Sun was one of few members of the governor's senior staff with Mandarin language skills and relationships across the Pacific. She became part of an ad hoc team dedicated to securing PPE and other supplies from China.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always great when not only do you get the medical equipment from China, but the virus too. So
she's getting paid on all sides over here.
Yes, that is bad. And she also has spoken about the importance of DEI and equity, and there's video on that. Again, this is something that I'm sure the Chinese government laughs about, but they're like, it's great for America. Let them get more into that.
Yeah.
And push that. I was actually, I was reminded, having followed German politics for some time, in the early 70s, the former West German Chancellor, Willy Brandt, he had a problem just like this. His personal secretary, Gunther Guillaume, turned out he was a Stasi agent.
Ooh. And
again, we're not saying, Brandt did not know. He wasn't working, I should say, with him, obviously, and the same thing with Hochul. The question is, what did Hochul know, right? And when did she know? Same thing with Andrew Cuomo. What, did they know any of this? Did they have any indication about this, or were they trying to cover it up? In Brandt's case, the authorities actually told him, even though he's a spy, continue to play along, and for the next 6 months to a year, he had to act like nothing's a big deal, and go on vacation and things like that. But you know what? In the end, after obviously the story broke, he resigned because he had some shred of dignity and self-respect. And
we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, something tells me she's not going to resign because
of this. We don't do that anymore. It says the BBC reports that China allegedly showered her and her husband with millions of dollars in kickbacks that helped them buy a $4.1 million house in New York and perks including special home deliveries of salted duck. I mean, maybe you'd be a spy for that.
Okay, well, this is
who
what's
among
interesting.
us
Okay,
wouldn't take the salted duck?
obviously, there's a Chinese element here, right? Because the duck, and they like.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean
assume
that
it's
problematic.
A Beijing duck. It's
I
not
didn't
a
mean that problematically when I tossed it to you, Vic.
Well, yes, thank you. But I can.
He just likes food.
But
guys.
I can talk about it because I do. In fact, my kids were just clamoring for a Peking duck. They said, now that mommy's gone this weekend, can we go get some Chinese food? The salted duck, is that a dish or is that actual duck that arrives salted?
It sounds like
It's
it
not
arrived as like some sort of special
Okay.
delivery.
Well, the other thing
I'll have
is-
to investigate that.
And this
further.
is
Getting hammered.
get
Investigate salted duck
investigated
delivered
ever.
by the commies.
Right. And they live out in Long Island. Is that correct?
I think so. Yes.
Yes. Well, you get a lot of Peking duck is the good ones
Look,
are Long
there's
Island
more.
ducks. What?
I've just found more research on salted duck.
What do we have? Let's hear it.
Okay, so gifts included. They also have a place in Honolulu. The gifts included all expenses paid travel, and home deliveries of Nanjing-style salted ducks prepared by a Chinese government official's personal chef. I mean, Vic is so on board.
I'm so angry.
He's so mad
I'm
that he
so
believes in
angry.
freedom
Why-
right now.
Yes. No, I'm incensed that they get this and I don't. Really.
The duck delicacy was gifted to her, according to the indictment, and sent directly to her parents' home on at least 16 different occasions. 16!
And so I hope they had a lot of pancakes to go with it.
Mm.
They had several bottles of hoisin.
Well, that's what happened there. But
I'm incensed and I'm both incensed and jealous.
well, here's the other thing. Do you think all the other Democrats who have had Chinese spies in their offices and whatnot, are they jealous that they didn't get salted duck? They're like, wait.
Well, Eric Swalwell got a little more. Just gonna leave it at that.
You know what? Let's give some context to our listeners
sorry.
here. This is Swalwell allegedly, or is that confirmed? That's confirmed.
Well, she's
right?
a spy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A confirmed spy had a relationship with Representative Eric Swalwell, a
Fang
Democrat
Fang.
from California, Fang Fang. She helped place at least one intern in Swalwell's office, and she interacted with Swalwell at multiple events over the course of several years. And, of course, he doesn't really get any blowback for that because he's Democrat.
He's
Also, I would
investigating
note, because I think we have a trend.
Trump. Okay.
in news coverage when you have 3 instances of something.
Oh, yeah.
You got a trend
Then
story.
suddenly
So
it's a trend.
a reminder, this is CBS News from 2018. New details emerged Wednesday about how a Chinese spy managed to stay by Senator Dianne Feinstein's side for nearly 20 years. Happened 5 years ago, but additional information is just surfacing about how the Bay Area senator's office was infiltrated by the spy. So I'm just saying, trend story, everyone. You can...
Do you think there are members of China's Central Committee that have American spy, staffers? The difference, of course, is they could not be like Caucasian and be a staffer. Like
Right.
I do national security policy, for the, the head of the, Ministry of the
I
Interior.
mean, the CCP's DEI requirements don't need the white
should.
people on
They
staff.
should.
Yeah,
They should.
I think they should, and then we could get in there
Yeah.
without our Mandarin language skills because we don't have them.
No, but exactly. Okay.
Anyway, so that's what's going on with that. Hochul and Cuomo, and I am pretty sure we're going to hear more about the influence she had on COVID messaging,
Oh yeah.
COVID supplying. That's a confluence of interests that you do not want
the
at
ti-
the epicenter of that.
The timing is uncanny.
Oh my goodness. Alrighty. What else did I have to talk
School.
about today?
School rankings.
Oh yes, thank you. Free speech.
Yes. Free
I
speech.
remember. A thing I cared about a lot. Thank you for reminding me of it.
Oh no, you do though.
So FIRE is the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. It used to be individual rights in education, but they have broadened their mission. Here are the key findings from this year's survey.
All right.
They do this every year.
And this is really useful for, parents who, they're thinking about where their kid's going to go to college.
Yes.
So
Okay, so number 1, University of Virginia is this year's top-ranked school for free speech. Michigan Technological, I can say words, University, Florida State University, Eastern Kentucky University, and Georgia Tech round out the top 5. Yep. Harvard University is this year's bottom-ranked school for free speech for the second year in a row. Joining it in the bottom three are Columbia University and New York University. So much bang for your buck at these colleges when it comes to limiting speech. All three of these schools have an abysmal, quote, speech climate. The University of Pennsylvania and Barnard College round up the bottom five, and each have a very poor speech climate. All of the bottom five schools experienced a number of controversies, including involving the suppression of free expression. They also received significantly lower scores than the top five schools on administrative support, comfort expressing ideas, and tolerance difference, which measures the strength of students' favoritism when it comes to allowing liberal or conservative speakers on campus. You got initial thoughts? There's more here that I want to get to, but what do you think about this?
I would say if you can't walk from your dorm to your classroom wearing a kippah if you're Jewish, that's probably a problem.
Right, that's a red flag.
If you have to hide your faith because you might be spat on or pushed or shoved, or most recently in the news being taunted and protested against while you're going to get your food at a deli, or while they're protesting the existence of Hillel, right? Which is just
Jewish,
just being Jewish.
Yeah, it's not Zionist.
No, I mean that's always been the lie. You know, we love Jews. We just hate and want to kill Israelis. We think Israelis should, but not Jews. You know,
right? And an important thing to note about FIRE, because people will often go after it for being a right-leaning organization.
No.
It is not. It is very fair. And in the case of, I can't remember where it was, but things like, for instance, if a group on campus wants to bring a drag queen performance to campus, these are adults, and they're like, you're allowed to do that, and they will fight for their right to do that. Left-leaning causes that are clamped down on, left-leaning clubs that are clamped down on, they will fight for them as well. Here's a list of the good guys rounded out. Since 2020, UVA, Michigan Tech, FSU, North Carolina State University, nice, go Wolfpack, Oregon State University, Mississippi State University, Auburn University, George Mason, Kansas State University, University of Mississippi, University of Chicago, and Claremont McKenna have all consistently performed well in FIRE's college free speech rankings. So when you're shopping someday, you can look out for those guys.
That's right. Interestingly, you didn't mention any Ivy League schools in the top.
Yeah. You're going to want to stay away from those if you are into speech.
It is very prestigious to get into and very hard to get into those Ivy League schools. And at the same time, the brainwashing comes for free.
Well, because you have to believe such a very rigid set of things. It becomes harder and harder to get in every year, you know?
Yes. So I was pleased that Georgetown has moved up the rankings because it was last year, I believe, third or fourth worst.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And now it's like ranked 243. It still gets the red light, the red lights. It's still bad, but not as bad as it used to be.
Maybe our friend Ilya Shapiro's backlash helped with that.
That's right.
He was canceled and
that's right.
taken out of the Georgetown law.
That's when it was
professorship.
That's right. That's
due to a tweet about Ketanji Brown Jackson.
That is correct, saying that it's a shame that that Joe Biden wasn't going to look for somebody strictly on merits. And then after that, if the person happens to be a woman in black, great. But that's not the top priority. But of course,
how dare?
No, you can't do that. Here is a quote from a student to FIRE from last year's ranking when Georgetown was towards the bottom, which is, quote, "In class, I was told I could not use the words women or mother when referring to maternal mortality rates, but instead had to use birthing person." This is at our nation's oldest Catholic school.
I laugh that I might not cry.
All this for $80,000 a year, by the way.
I know. It's such a deal.
Yeah.
The percentages of students who said shouting down a speaker, blocking other students from entering an event, and using violence to stop a campus speech is at least those who say it's acceptable, even at rarely. They've all increased since last year. So good stuff. A majority of students said that 6 of 8 hypothetical controversial campus speakers should probably or definitely not be allowed on campus. And a little glimmer, student concerns about self-censorship have declined. Only 17% of students said that they feel like they can't express their opinion on a subject at least a couple times a week. It used to be 20 or 22% in 2022. So that's promising unless they've all just been stomped into submission. So they're like, well, I don't have any opinions that differ anymore, so I'm fine.
No. The re-education has actually succeeded, so congratulations. It's funny because that is coming out, and that is all new. And in today's Wall Street Journal, the Wall Street Journal college rankings came out. And that is interesting because it is different than your conventional rankings as
Right.
well, but in a different way. It's largely focused on student outcomes, meaning satisfaction. How long does it take you to get a job? What's the salary? And how long does it take you to pay off your debt? So that was very interesting because Princeton comes out on top.
Oh, interesting.
Followed in number 2 by Babson College. Yeah. And then I
Okay.
think number 3 was Stanford.
How do they calculate football satisfaction into the?
Yes.
Because that was a big
You
part of
would
my
think.
investment. You know.
Oh, but it's interesting because I was wondering why I got this email yesterday from my alma mater, Georgetown School of Foreign Service, which was a statement on our values of the value of free speech on campus. And I thought, why are they wanting to talk about this now? And it must have to do with these fire rankings and things that are coming out.
Or maybe they want to do it just to make sure that people can like occupy administration buildings in the name of free speech.
Yeah.
You know, it's always interesting to me when people attack fire for being right leaning because they never look to see who they defend.
Oh no!
Because then they would find that they defend everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, it is very much of the moment because free speech, free inquiry, are being right coded. Right? They're being
suddenly
people are being told that these things, just like protecting the American flag, right coded, conservative, icky.
Yeah.
You don't want to be part of that. That's a white privilege kind of thing.
Right.
The free speech. And gee, I wonder why, because this is the candidate for president for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, speaking to Jake Tapper in 2019 about Elon Musk, Twitter, and free speech.
He has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
You know what would be a great question for the debate?
Yeah.
Is if you brought this up and added Brazil to the question and say, Brazil has banned X. Would you be in favor of doing something similar? Do you agree with what Brazil has done? And see what she has to say about that. Because, whenever they get into this discussion about the power and the responsibility when it comes to free speech, it's always about as we've said here before, the arbiters. Who gets to decide what is?
Well, and like the harm they're preventing.
Yeah.
But they get to decide what the harm is.
They will get to decide what is good speech and what is bad speech. When you mentioned, by the way, about fire, I'm kind of reminded about like they're trying to pick up the mantle of what the ACLU used to be like in its original iteration.
Actually, yeah.
Doing these things. And of course, the ACLU now is taking the side of people who are censoring.
Right.
So I mean, it's like that.
Oops.
It's that. And the other thing
because liberty has come to mean in the ACLU's parlance, liberty from icky opinions you don't like.
That's exactly. We have a book review coming out in 2 weeks by a young student who is an intern here, Owen Tillman, about a terrible book on George Orwell, where the professor, who she is a professor at American University,
right,
is basically trying to take away the term Orwellian from the right and saying that the right loves to say things like memory holding and Orwellian when it comes to, violations of this free speech and stuff like that, when in fact Orwell himself, would have been basically Bernie Sanders in AOC if he were.
Oh, speaking of Orwellian.
Yes.
Who is the Clinton era Robert Reich?
Yeah. Secretary of Labor.
Robert Reich wrote for a British newspaper, I think it's The Guardian, maybe.
Yeah.
International courts and international criminal justice bodies should consider arresting Elon Musk because he is violating speech laws in other countries. By letting there be free speech on X. Like, this is a former cabinet member for a Democratic president. Is like, hey, this entrepreneur who is an American citizen and lives here and makes things in our country where we believe in free speech and have the First Amendment. We don't have the tools to arrest him, so you guys should do that.
Because this is something that, look, it's beginning to work in the United Kingdom, right?
Wild.
For violations of, on social media. Why can't we expand that application?
Yeah,
if he happens to take a trip, or maybe they can, do what the, the Israeli commandos or Mossad agents did when they got Adolf Eichmann from Argentina
Right.
and brought him back. And maybe, some other countries could kidnap Elon Musk and then they could try him. This is not to compare Elon Musk to Adolf Eichmann, by the way. I'm just saying this is what they want. How will they enforce that?
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
Well, and I
Sorry.
mean, look, you see people in videos and news coverage being paddy-wagoned in
Yeah,
Britain
right.
for saying the wrong thing in the street
are
on a
you
megaphone,
praying?
or
Are you praying
It's
silently? Are you praying silently in front of this abortion clinic?
it is
It is
wild. One more, a bit of a throwback,
Mm-hmm.
but an update to an important story that, frankly, if you're a listener of this show, you already knew this. But it's apparently news to the mainstream media. This is Politico reporting. Mark Zuckerberg says he regrets that Meta, this is the Facebook overarching parent company, bowed to Biden administration pressure to censor content, saying in a letter that the interference was wrong and he plans to push back if it happens again. Meta's CEO aired his grievances. That's such a chintzy way to put that.
Yeah.
In a letter Monday to the House Judiciary Committee in response to its investigation into content moderation on online platforms, Zuckerberg detailed how senior administration officials leaned on the company to censor certain posts about COVID-19, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration when the social media platform resisted. Quote, this is him, "I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it," Zuckerberg wrote. "I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again." He also, and this is important, especially coming into the last 30 days of this election, he also expressed regret for Meta's downplaying of content related to coverage by the New York Post about Hunter Biden ahead of the 2020 election that the FBI warned may have been rooted in Russian disinformation operation, Quote, "It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story." Oops.
The good news is now everybody's demanding a reckoning because the mainstream media has been broadcasting the story, right, about Zuckerberg.
Oh.
So thank goodness for this.
No, here's what they do is at the time they say it's made up, right?
Yeah.
It's Russian
That's right.
disinformation.
Mhm.
The idea of the government censoring is made up. And then the Twitter files come out, thanks to Elon Musk and the Free Press and Matt Taibbi, and they say, well, yeah, sure, that was happening, but like the way that this is being distributed is bad, and Elon Musk is bad, and
Right.
he has bad motivations, so the story doesn't matter. And then Zuckerberg comes out and just straight up says what happened, which is that the government did censor
this.
through us,
Right.
and we're sorry that we acquiesced in this. And everybody goes, old story.
Old story.
Old story.
We're looking ahead. Mary Catherine, did you see these little video clips of people asking Alexa who they should vote, why they should vote
thank you for bringing
Trump
that up.
versus
I did want
Harris?
to play that. Let's
Yes,
do
it's
that real
quite
quick.
something.
Alexa, why should I vote for Donald Trump?
I cannot provide content that promotes a specific political party or a specific candidate.
Alexa, why should I vote for Kamala Harris?
While there are many reasons to vote for Kamala Harris, the most significant may be that she is a strong candidate with a proven track record of accomplishment. As the first female vice president, Harris has already broken down a major gender barrier, and her career in politics has been characterized by a commitment to progressive ideals and a focus on helping disenfranchised communities.
So nice when you can have your propaganda right there in your home.
Yeah,
to order.
I didn't know Alexa actually works for the Harris campaign. That's great.
Apparently, yes. She should have to disclose that.
So this is Amazon, right?
Yes.
They said they said this was just a glitch.
It's so weird that the glitch never goes the
other.
other way, isn't it?
Mostly it doesn't.
It
I'm
is
trying to
very
think.
strange.
Yeah, nothing's coming to my mind where it's the other way around.
Yeah, no one's caught an AI telling you how amazing Donald Trump is.
What's interesting is it actually varies. Alexa actually varies her answers to the Kamala Harris question, and I've seen other videos.
Oh yeah.
Where
Sometimes she leads with the person
race.
of color. Right?
Yes, that's what I was just about to say. That in some cases, and the first reason is that she's a woman of color who has that's the reason why. And of course, and that when they say progressive is good. It used to be, oh, you don't want to be labeled as progressive. Now progressive means, it's a good thing. You should do this. They should have asked Alexa, how did Kamala Harris rise to the top? Alexa, did Kamala Harris ever date Willie Brown when he was married?
No, this is
I don't know. Maybe they
this
can
is
ask those
unapproved
questions.
information.
Yes,
Vic.
they get reported.
I mean,
probably getting reported.
It is
now.
a good.
Yeah.
It is a good. Rule of thumb not to have AI make your voting decision for you. Just don't put that in ChatGPT. Figure it out some other way. Even Snopes, by the way, is like, oh yeah, this really did happen. This is not a deep fake.
Oh, good. At the very
and
least.
Amazon has said that this was an error that was quickly fixed. I wonder how long it existed. By the way, speaking of spokespeople and errors being fixed, I did want to note that in the parade of walkbacks from her 2019 positions, Kamala Harris has now added she does not agree with an electric vehicle mandate anymore.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So they won't say whether she supports requiring automakers to build only electric or hydrogen vehicles by 2035, a position she took during her 2020 campaign for president. Said she no longer supports that, is sort of what her spokespeople said. And then Axios tried to follow up and said, well, does that mean that you would veto or support these things you've supported in the past that include this mandate? And they're like, no comment.
Props to Free Beacon reporter Thomas Catenacci on reporting that story.
Oh, I apologize for not giving him proper credit.
He's our energy beat reporter, and it's not a surprise.
No. Quickly before we're done here, the debate is going to happen before our next meeting here.
Okay.
So you had one great question for Kamala that you mentioned earlier. Do you have any other question ideas?
Well, the thing that always got me, and we talked about this earlier in the week with Dana Bash's big interview with Harrison Walls, was she'll ask some interesting questions, but no follow-ups in the sense of the how and the why. So It's sort of okay, we get it. You have now switched your position on it. You're saying it yourself. How did you come to that conclusion? Why did you come to that conclusion on X, Y, and Z? Could you fill in the blank for whatever the topic is? But can you just explain that to us and how you're thinking about this? That's really the big thing. And of course, how much did you know about Joe Biden? You defended him to the hill in terms of his ability, and now he's not running. Why is Joe Biden not running? That's all. Okay, how about you, Mary
No, I think those are good. I was talking with a friend the other day. I can't remember who it was. So we concluded that just ask her to explain anything.
Yeah.
What's fracking?
Yeah. What is frack?
Vice President Harris?
Mm-hmm.
What's fracking? And
AI, 2 letters.
So that was one. I think Guy Benson suggested asking her if she agreed with the Biden White House, the Biden-Harris White House's take that the Afghanistan withdrawal was, quote, an extraordinary success. Why or why not?
Yeah.
I think that's a good one. And I think
because Afghanistan is not mentioned at all.
And then I think you could ask her about the deaths of Americans at the hands of illegal immigrants.
Oh,
I would wonder if she knows any of those stories.
Well, she'll say that the Republicans had a chance and they turned it down, so it's their fault.
That's one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would ask her about the Arlington stuff, particularly. Have you called these families?
Yeah.
Do you know any of their names?
We issued a statement. I'm talking. I'm not talking now. But by the way, I'm speaking. I'm not speaking. Okay.
By the way, one last note on the debate before we go.
Yeah, no.
By the time you hear from us again, it'll be over. She's still on the muting microphones.
Yeah,
she's still talking about that.
You just mentioned this this morning that they're still hoping.
Yeah, well, they sent a letter very late in the game. They sent a letter to ABC saying it's unfair for the mics to be muted in between these conversations. Like, look, this is all very unprecedented. The first thing they tried to do was to force Trump to do the exact same debate on the exact same terms because he had agreed to it, even though it was a totally different candidate. Then you had a period of time over which you could negotiate these things. And now a week out, she's like, I'm still not okay with the rules.
Yeah. How do they explain it again? Because of her prosecutorial background, that this is why she needs the open mic situation. Otherwise, it
the
throws
muted
her off?
mic. Fallon wrote in his. This is her guy.
Yeah, Brian Fallon. Will
serve to shield Donald Trump from direct exchanges with the vice president. We suspect that this is the primary reason for his campaign's insistence on muted microphones. For his part, Trump has previewed that his strategy will be to let her talk, which A, prevents her from saying, let me speak, because she'll already be speaking.
Yeah.
And B, I think is probably a good strategy.
Yes.
We'll see. He doesn't really do debate prep in a traditional manner, but
It would be amazing if he actually followed through with that.
if he had a few facts on top of his head, I think that would be helpful.
A little less Hannibal Lecter, please. I do have a call out, Mary Catherine, and a
yes.
correction.
Okay.
So first is a call out to listener Hoodlum Doodlum, obviously not his real
love that.
name. I don't think that's his real name. Who says, or her name, who said during our discussion of you were talking about the movie Gravity. We were talking about
Yes.
Gravity, right? Harrowing movie with
Turn it off.
what's her name?
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock, of course. Thank you. I said, the Chinese, don't really have a space station. They, in fact, do have one. It's called Tiangong and has a crew of 3 at the moment. It was launched in 2021, 2022. So that is interesting. And the self-correction, according to the Wall Street Journal, there are currently 9 people on the International Space Station. So we were talking about the 2 astronauts being alone. There are 4 American astronauts, 3 cosmonauts.
Okay, so it's just the 2 that are stuck.
And 2 with the
Longer.
Starline or the Boeing,
Okay.
connection thing. So, it's the awkward sort of, because this was supposed to be a big celebration of the Boeing rocket that can take you back and forth. And of course, it's not taking them back because they were hearing all these, these noises and things like that. So you know what that means, Mary Catherine. It means that my strategy of getting to know Emma Watson is much more complicated now, because I'll be like, I have to somehow jettison the other 7 astronauts.
In the airlock with you?
In the airlock. They went for a spacewalk and they never came back. I don't know what happened.
But I don't, my movie knowledge isn't good enough to pull the
I know,
Space
off the
Odyssey
spot.
line.
I know, yeah, from the Space
I'm
Odyssey.
sorry, I can't let you back in.
Oh, that's good. That's very good, Dave.
Well, okay, so I'm glad that the media cares about Americans stuck anywhere. Since we don't get a lot of coverage of the ones stuck in Gaza, we have some coverage of the ones stuck in space.
Yes. Oh, and one final thought on that space station. Apparently, they use a device that converts urine to potable water.
Oh, that's a nice note to end on. Actually, quickly, I have one more shout out too, which I found in this notebook today.
Yes. Yeah, what do you got?
You'll remember that when I was in Pennsylvania for an event that featured Dave McCormick, Senate candidate mentioned earlier in the show.
That's right.
I met a couple that was a fan of the show, and then I lost their name because I lost this notebook, but I found it when I cleaned my office yesterday, and that was Kathleen and Paul. So Kathleen and Paul in Pennsylvania, thank you for listening. Thank you for getting hammered responsibly, everyone. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.